Not every Democrat running for president is in Iowa this weekend. Mike Bloomberg got into the race late, so he is skipping Iowa, but no doubt his campaign is still watching to see who wins in this state because he will face him on the ballot in Super Tuesday in Texas. So who does the Bloomberg campaign, who are they pulling for? That's a big question. And joining us from New York City this morning is Kevin Sheekey. He is Bloomberg's national campaign manager. Kevin, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start with what you guys are watching in Iowa. Who has to win here? Who has to lose here in order to give Bloomberg the best shot on Super Tuesday?
You know, I don't think we're handicapping winners and losers in Iowa. I think that our goal is to run a national political campaign. We think that we should get voters from sea to shining sea involved in this and organized for a fall election. And so while the candidates, as you point out, and you are in Iowa, Mike will be in Arizona and California and Detroit, and he was in Texas last week.
Bernie is ahead in the polls here too, but if Biden doesn't finish second, maybe even third, doesn't that give Bloomberg an edge as the moderate candidate as they move forward? Doesn't that weaken Biden a little bit?
Well, I would expect the vice president actually to do very well. I'd expect him to win Iowa. He has campaigned for president of Iowa 3 times. He was the vice president of the United States for 8 years, and I would suspect, but you're out in Iowa, that the people in Iowa know him better than anyone other than people outside of Delaware, his home state. If he does not do well, obviously in Iowa, and if we don't have a strong candidate coming out of the early 4 states, then, well, that's really the reason that Mike Bloomberg is running. To put a national coalition together, the strongest possible campaign, the broadest possible coalition, ultimately to defeat the president.
And the big news this weekend that everyone is talking about is the debate rules the Democrats have changed, which would potentially open a window for your candidate to debate and get on stage in Nevada. If Mike Bloomberg qualifies, is he going to debate in Nevada?
He sure will, and we expect that he will qualify. They've removed a rule that said you had to raise money. Mike has always run his campaigns independent of special interest. He's always self-funded his campaigns so that he never had to compromise his decisions. And the new debate rules are solely based on public support, which in many ways I think they should have been from the start.
And Kevin, a lot of people are wondering if your candidate, your boss, Mike Bloomberg, might be the first billion-dollar candidate. I know he hasn't put a limit on what he's going to spend, but how much do you think he might spend as we move into Super Tuesday and later into the year?
We filed with the FEC yesterday what we spent in the first month, and I think it's simply a down payment on what he's committed to, which is running a 50-state campaign to involve every part of this country in a race in November to defeat Donald Trump.
Has he told you can't spend over a certain amount? Does he ever question the checks that you write?
I would like to say listen, Mike has done well in life for a reason. I'd say he questions every nickel and makes sure that every dollar we spend is appropriate, but has never given me an upward limit on what we should spend if it's something we should do.
Kevin, in Texas, the Lyceum poll out a few days ago, and it showed that Mike Bloomberg had 9% support in Texas. That's about a third of what Bernie and Biden have in Texas. How do you guys read that? I'm curious if there's really enough time to close that gap for Bloomberg over the next 4 weeks.
Well, we're running that test right now. Mike Bloomberg got into this campaign about 8 weeks ago. The vice president and Senator Sanders have been running for 2 years. That said, Mike Bloomberg is the only campaign that actually has a campaign in Texas. That is campaigning in Texas. Like I said, Mike was in El Paso earlier this week. We have dozens of offices and hundreds of people across that state. And I'm sure as your viewers see, we're actually advertising in that state, unlike other candidates. And so we fully intend to compete in the great state of Texas.
Kevin, we're 4 weeks away from Super Tuesday. What does a win realistically look like in Texas for Bloomberg?
You know, I think it really is the same as what we're trying to do around the rest of this country. Listen, we have a system where we fundamentally, since 1976, have chosen our nominees in the states of Iowa and in the states of New Hampshire. I work on the theory that the people in Texas don't wake up in the morning and decide what to do based on what someone in Des Moines has done. I think everyone in this country has their own views about what we should be doing going forward, what's important to the country. I think Mike Bloomberg is arguing that we should have a stable president who can create good jobs and bring people together around this country in ways that we have not. And I think that message is going to resonate with the people of Texas.
Are you looking for like a 10% double-digit threshold at least for Bloomberg to move forward?
Listen, I think in Texas they say go big or go home. I'm not looking for anything less than a win.
All right. Kevin Sheekey, the national campaign manager for Mike Bloomberg, thanks for being here this morning.
Thank you for having me.